The numbers are in, boys. The War Within player drop-off is way down. What's going on? Is the War Within not a good expansion? Is WoW a dead game? What do you mean the numbers are down, Bellular? Oh no, Mythic Plus finally fixed. At least that seems positive. Let's see what Bell's to say about player numbers in the War Within.
I've noticed something change over the last few weeks. The vibes. There has been a vibe shift towards Mythic Plus. It's kind of changed. It seems that people think Blizzard are finally understanding Mythic Plus. It seems that years and years of stubbornness have slowly melted away, and we are now getting what some people actually are calling the best season of Mythic Plus to date. But while vibes are one thing,
people are saying it's better than Dragonflight. Mythic Plus, really? I've done it. Like 3 dungeons so far this season, I think. So I got to get in there. I'm always raid leading. You know, I do my thing in raids. I'm a man of the people, so I'm carrying people through raid right now. But I do need to dabble more Mythic Plus this season to really push my level up.
So today, I'm not coming at you with vibes.
And the ones I ran were fun.
With numbers and facts. We've also got to talk a bit about gearing up, because I've got a best-in-slot IRL upgrade. It's today's sponsor, Henson Shaving, because with them, you will get a better shave.
Oh, a straight
and you will
razor.
spend between $3 and $5 a year on blade refills. Yes, between $3 and $5. It's insane. And that's because Henson are not just another cartridge brand whose MO is to hook you on wasteful plastic-filled cartridges that are stupidly expensive. So here's how I shave. This is my Henson razor. I pop the top off, I insert a blade, and then I shave. It really is as simple as that. You see, cartridge blades, right? They're expensive.
That's going to cause an infection.
Often end up using them beyond proper sharpness. In fact, over 80% of shavers admit to knowingly shaving with a dull blade. That makes sense. I've done that. And so with Henson, the single disposable blade costs only 10 cents. It allows for a sharp blade every shave without the extra cost. And it's huge for quality of life. The Henson razor has got only one point of contact with your skin. This minimizes damage compared to dragging multiple blades across your skin. That results in significantly less irritation, razor burn, and ingrown hairs. And it's precision engineered with tight tolerances and a 30-degree angle. There's no rattle whenever you shake it about. It is a stable as hell thing to shave with, and it is super comfortable to use. Compared to Henson, cartridge razors just feel like a scam. You can visit hensonshaving.com/bellular and use code bellular today to get
you neckbeards out there,
free blades.
Get your fucking razors.
This is a map of the Theater of Pain dungeon. Specifically, it's Raider.io's heat map of player deaths from last week. Now, you see those 2 big red spots?
Yeah.
That is where the most people were dying. And when they died, it was almost always to this, Dark Winds. Now take a look at...
So nothing has changed. Nothing has changed since Shadowlands when this thing was introduced, right? Yeah, this was literally killing everybody the first time around. And this is still happening. Okay, good to know.
Now take a look at this map. This map is from this week. You might notice they're just a little bit different. This reset, Blizzard pushed a change. And in this change, they added something simple. A line that shows Dark Winds' direction.
Okay, I haven't run Theater of Pain yet this season, but that's freaking great. That was part of the reason why everyone used to die to it, was because you couldn't really tell which direction this thing was going to go. If you really didn't have a good angle on where the boss was in relation to it. Wow, a line. This is a great visual update.
And width. Blizzard added that line, and look what happens per the heat map. The red spot is a hell of a lot less red. So, in very literal terms, Blizzard spotted a mechanic that was killing players, even players who had seen it more than once. They then put in some UI to make it easier to see and understand. And now it seems way fewer people are dying. In a narrow sense, you could call that a nerf, but what they really did was find a point of frustration and remove that point of frustration. Now, even if you died to Dark Winds on the first platform, like everyone seems to be doing, you can recognize and dodge it on the second one. Blizzard didn't remove the mob from the pack. They didn't remove the knockback. They didn't make it easier. They made it fair. Obviously, that does end up making it easier, but in a better way. It still lets you have the satisfaction of winning, or if you still die to it, you can at least clearly see why.
Yeah, exactly. If you die to it now, it's very obvious what your mistake was, right, and how you can fix it. Whereas before, you died to this thing, you're like, shit, I hope I can figure out which way it's going to go next time.
It's a frustrating experience, and
it's a great update.
I think Blizzard finally get it. This is really what I mean. Just take a look at this list of nerfs that have happened over the past few weeks. Some of these are flat nerfs because Mythic Plus was just a bit too hard in general.
Yeah, it's overtuned.
But most of them are things like this Dark Winds change. Most of them are Blizzard specifically hitting points of friction and frustration by doing things like, say, increasing cast and travel times on important abilities and reducing one-shots. And the result is so obvious. We can literally see them on the heat maps. We can see how player deaths have changed. Blizzard are being really smart here. They are targeting frustration, but they're keeping the actual fun of Mythic Plus's challenge intact.
Very true.
That is the thing that they, for years, had failed at. So I'm happy to say it looks like they're beginning to succeed. The Engoodening is not just a few changes, it's all compounding stuff. So remember this season's affix changes, where there's no affixes at all until +4. So you get 2 challenging practice levels at +2 and +3 before anything more complicated shows up. Mythic Plus dungeons are also way more rewarding. More on that stuff later. Then you get 1 Xalatath affix until
I think that was a big one, that they shifted the rewards up, and he said he's going to talk about it, but I think it's really important to just mention that the rewards and the way they were stacking up before was forcing people to jump into Mythic Plus. Jesus Christ. Was forcing people to jump in at a much higher key level, which was leading to a lot of, okay, you're jumping in way too high to start, you're dying, the group's getting frustrated, breeds toxicity, and then it's like a never-ending cycle of just shit shows happening at a +7, basically. So now all that stuff's been pushed up a little bit, and, players are going to follow the rewards. So earlier rewards means people are actually going to join keys that are a little bit lower, learn the dungeons, and work their way up.
7, which is where Fortified or Tyrannical comes in, and the other comes in at +10. Then, Challenger's Guile, which is the affix that added an obscenely huge penalty to deaths, well, it was moved all the way up to Mythic +12, taking the place of the old version of Guile. So basically, affixes were massively nerfed. Now, the important thing to add here is that it's not just fresh nerfs. The last part of Season 1 had huge changes that, because Season 1 was a little bit embattled, ran completely under the radar, but they do make up a huge part of why this season feels better. One of those things is rewards. You now get better gear and more of just about everything compared to a few months ago. I mean, at the start of Season 1, failing a keystone gave you 5 crests compared to the 12 that you'd get from timing a key. And that meant that doing a harder key was actually a dumb move. Now it's different. Now the crest amount scales up with the keystone, and failing the timer simply removes 4 crests instead of a whopping 7 crests. Plus, you actually get better crests earlier. Now you get ruined from 2s and gilded from 7s. And those are very...
And the chat needs to get on fucking theme here. We're just ripping Sam apart, and we're talking about Mythic Plus in the meantime. What the hell's going on? You guys drink like some angry coffee this morning or something? What the hell? Anyways, the rewards. Yes, the rewards. As I mentioned, much better rewards, making Mythic Plus more rewarding. Imagine that. Yeah, and players are going to always chase the rewards. So these were all great changes.
Very manageable difficulties, and they land pretty much perfectly where players seem to need them. Then, of course, there's gear. If you do a Mythic Plus, even a +2, you'll get hero gear in your vault. And that means if you fully gear in Delves and you don't need champion gear, doing Mythic +2s will no longer be a complete waste of your time. Yeah. And then if you do want to farm hero gear, you'll need to work your way up to a +6. But that's only 1 additional affix and a few levels away. It's not as much. Yeah. And the whole time you progress up the levels, you're getting stacks of ruined crests, pretty much maxing out your existing champion gear.
Perfect.
It works damn well. And then, of course, gilded for your new hero gear, well, that's only 1 more affix and level away, up at +7, when before it was at +10, which comparatively was brutal. So basically, as an overall system, it kind of just works. Gearing in Mythic Plus finally makes a good degree of sense. Now, you then combine that with the easiest, or perhaps just the least frustrating season yet, and it seems that Blizzard have kind of cracked the code here. That Mythic Plus really just needs to be 2 things. It needs to be rewarding, and it needs to be fair. As far as I can tell, they've got the former worked out, and they are well on their way to fixing up the latter.
Great.
But again, let's not do vibes here. Let's take a look at some of the hard data to see if any of these vibes and intuitions are even right. Here's the one point that matters more than anything. Is Mythic Plus falling off? The answer is yes. And I know you might be thinking, what? I thought this was a positive video. Now you're back to bashing Blizzard again. Oh, you must need the ad revenue. No.
People are getting a bit ridiculous with that, where they just bash Bellular constantly because they just think he makes negative videos for the clickbaits. What's it called? At least he still plays the game. Ish. I don't know how much he plays, but I do feel like he still wants the best for the game. And yeah, people who say that shit, I think is kind of unfair. But he's going to get into right now a very important thing about the numbers and how they seemingly are down. I'll let him do that, and then I'll tell you exactly why I think they look the way they look.
Look, it's actually the case that, yeah, Mythic Plus is
You're a clickbait negative
off
video.
A little bit, but that's fine. This actually almost always happens. What we need to actually look at is how fast it is falling off, because we're moving from the launch season, right, when the expansion is new, to a mid-season, so they are fundamentally different. Now, that's when these 4 numbers in particular get real important.
Okay.
These are fall-offs of runs between weeks 1, 2, and 3 in seasons 1 and 2. And looking in, we can see that in season 1, the second week lost 13.5%, and the third lost much more, 15.6%. In season 2, we see that...
Okay, so okay, I was confused a little bit when I first looked at this. You want a lower number here. A lower number is a good thing. That's less of a drop-off. This is measuring drop-off.
The fall-off is slower. It's only 12.6%, which does look tiny, but it's actually a 6% improvement. Here's the thing. That was before the nerfs. So let's talk about the nerfs, because, man, they certainly have worked.
They helped.
This period last season saw a 15% drop-off in players. This season, it's a minuscule 2.6%.
Impressive.
That is, in fact, the smallest percentage drop for a week 3
Thus
ever
words drop off
in
at the
Mythic Plus, and by a substantial margin. The second smallest is 7.5%, which is over twice as big. The impact of these changes in the numbers has been absolutely wild.
Yeah.
So Blizzard making these changes, even if they're not wild sweeping nerfs, is clearly bringing people back into more Mythic Plus. And even the comparison of...
And not only that, it's keeping them in Mythic Plus, right? Like, people always try Mythic Plus early in the season, but they're staying. Well, this is such a small drop-off comparatively to Season 1, where people very early on, looks like they just said, yeah, fuck this, I'm not doing Mythic Plus this season. So, yeah, it's bringing them and it's keeping them, which is it's great.
Is looking real good. So Season 2 started off with 17.4% less runs than before. But in week 3, right? By week 3, there's only a 11% difference from the same week in Season 1.
Yeah,
and
look
that
how
means
sharp
that
this drop-off is.
Rate, there will soon be more weekly runs in Season 2 than in Season 1.
Right, I see what he's saying here. That, yeah, as the drop-off here is so steep, and this one is so much less steep, that eventually it's going to cross over and you're going to see more people running Mythic Plus towards the end of this season than you did towards the end of last season. So, yeah, I see what he's saying here, which just means one thing. The content's more enjoyable.
Because the retention is fundamentally
higher retention rate, exactly.
The absolute numbers are looking good as well, by the way. We're looking at close to 2 million runs in week 3. That's actually a little bit higher than the same.
Damn. I mean, I always say it's the best season of Mythic Plus. Look at that. Dragonflight Season 3, peak. That's great. Look at those numbers. What is this showing by the here? Run count. Okay. Run count, where we at right now? We're within Season 2, right here in the middle. And Season 1 just above it. Okay.
Same point in Dragonflight. And remember, back in Dragonflight, there were no delves, right? Everyone who wanted gear without...
That's exactly what I was going to say, and he beat me to that point. The delves, guys, don't forget, we have another way to get gear progression, especially early in a season, right? Like, delves are actually probably the most efficient way out of the gate to just start getting geared in terms of time expenditure and everything else. So without delves and Dragonflight, it's a little bit hard to kind of compare the two sets of numbers, because people had to do Mythic Plus to get their crests and to get upgraded gear, whereas now you can run a delve, get that shit, run another delve, and it takes you away from Mythic Plus a little bit. So when you compare the numbers, yes, there's just going to be more people all in all running Dragonflight dungeons than there would be in the War Within. But the best thing to do is compare Season 1 to Season 2 of this expansion, because delves have been around for both.
Rating was forced to do Mythic Plus. Delves are a massive pressure release valve for that, especially because in Season 2,
Greg loves
delve
delves
gear
too.
is
Greg from
better
accounting.
than ever, and the delves themselves are more rewarding. That's all good, but how do we know if this has got anything to do with the dungeons being easier? Well, check this out. Success rate shot up. In week 3, 81% of keys were timed, a pretty major 3.5% higher the first week, and 6% the week after. And for what it's worth, higher success rates do tend to...
What's crazy here is success rates dropped. How the fuck did that happen? maybe just people quit, I guess, because you would expect success rates to start lower and move up because people, it's a new set of dungeons, kind of some new mechanics, a bunch of new things to deal with. You got to figure out your tanking paths. Healers got to figure out whether cooldowns should be used and all that. So yeah, you're going to have less success early in the season than later in the season. But what the hell is this? Oh my God, look at the week 1 to week 2 success rate. Holy shit.
Week after. And
Season 1 was a shit
higher
show.
Success rates do tend to correlate with better seasons, more runs, and better player
People got
sentiment.
worse.
Now you may also be thinking, hang on a second, from first principles, of course the numbers are going up. We're getting better gear. There's less frustration, obviously. And yeah, good point, but there's actually more to this. So, our friend Nightstalker tracks a whole bunch of data, and his report for Icy Veins dug into success rates versus key levels. And the short version of this is that players are actually moving up to higher key levels in droves, but they're still timing more keys than before. And at the time of his report last week, over a quarter of runs were at +10s. So people are playing with
reviewed
plus.
these numbers.
They are
Impressive.
finding success, less frustration, they're getting more rewards, and they're going up those higher key levels, which I would say is all around a real big win. So the data does actually confirm the vibes. This season is much, much better. And it's not even the easiest season ever. At least not yet.
I think Dragonflight Season 3 might have been the easiest season ever. But he's right. It's better. But why is it better? Because it's easier. Why is it easier? Because Blizzard actually listened to the player base instead of listening to the top 1%ers who just want the most challenging, sweaty content added to the game constantly. Making Mythic Plus more, what do you call it, accessible to like 99% of the player base is probably a good idea, and that's what they did with Season 2. It's just an easier, it's easier content than it was in Season 1.
That's because the easiest season ever was Season 3 of Dragonflight, which was also the third biggest season. Now, it doesn't seem that this season will come close to that, but it was never going to. Delves exist. They keep people who don't want to play.
Of course, Season 3 was easier. That's why you liked it. So I did like Season 3 of Dragonflight. I loved it. I forgot what my rating... I want to say, like, I got high into the 2000s. I know that. It's my highest rated season ever. I don't think I got to 3,000 IO, but I know I got very high into the 2000s, and that was because... It wasn't because I was more skilled in that season. No, I mean, my skill cap it's already extremely high. You can't get much better than Samiccus running on his Death Knight. Everybody knows that. That's peak skill. But what did happen that season was it was just easier. All the dungeons were easier, so I just ran the shit out of them.
Mythic Plus out of the Mythic Plus pool, which actually is a good thing. It's good that these numbers are lower, if they're lower because people who don't enjoy doing Mythic Plus don't have to do it anymore. So taking those players out of the picture and then having tons of players naturally falling off after the expansion and then still having these numbers, it actually shows that Mythic Plus may be the stickiest that it's ever been. And by sticky, I'm talking about retention. And in a game like World of Warcraft, retention is king.
Of course.
And once Blizzard see the positive reception and the data to support it, they will know what to do next. And Bless is obviously not perfect, and Blizzard still has lots of work to do.
Ho, thank you for the sub. Appreciate that. Welcome to our Scourge.
So continually working and making life less frustrating for healers and tanks would help a hell of a lot. Then pugging is still chaos and very often a nightmare. Trying to find a key as a DPS is also still a nightmare, so solving the balance will likely have a big impact here. This season has been a huge, positive improvement already. Being a healer is a lot less stressful when people can actually see mechanics well enough to dodge them.
That's true.
Blizzard have taken the difficulty spikes that felt like mistakes more than intent, and they filed them down. That's a better healing experience. Being a tank is less stressful as well. The nerf tank busters and smoother runs mean less pressure being put on you to overpull. And of course, when you're overpulling, you're more likely to make mistakes. So this is good for the quality of everyone's play. Now, one thing that could help is some form of solo queue, but then there are genuine concerns that come with group comp at the higher levels. I mean,
what does he mean by solo? He means like queuable, like the game forms the group? Is that what he's talking about when he says solo queue? I'm assuming, because right now you could queue as a solo, you queue to other people's groups. So solo queue would mean that the group is automatically assembled. It'll be an interesting one. I don't know how they would do that. You got to match IOs maybe, and then you'd have to have limits, I guess, on okay, you can only queue for a +5 if you have this IO, kind of like they do with eye level when it comes to LFR and everything else. I don't know how that would work.
For a +10 without a word could just feel like you're being trolled if the comp is bad.
Yeah.
That being said, honestly, some kind of solo queue would probably help a lot for Blizzard's numbers here, because right now pugging can be an absolute misery. Which brings me to class balance. Look, it's only fair that people want to optimize their chances of success by just waiting until they get a meta spec, you know, in the little sign-up sheet thing. And that's fair enough. The game literally incentivizes them to do that. It's not like there's a shortage of DPS.
What I will say, though, is for the most part, the WoW player base is pretty damn delusional. Because everyone likes to pretend like they are a plus 20 elite echo method, team liquid runner. When in fact they are nowhere near that. Meta matters for the highest end keys, because the smallest little nuanced changes in DPS and healing and everything makes a difference at those levels. You don't need to run a fucking meta comp on your stupid ass plus 6 or plus 7 key. Okay, you don't. It's not necessary. The numbers aren't going to make a big difference. Player skill is going to be far more important in a plus 7 than you're running your metas. Okay, so I always thought that was the dumbest shit, that people actually consider meta to that extent at lower keys. If you're running a plus 20, okay, fine. Then I understand you want to get every little edge you can possibly get because it's very challenging content. But you don't got to worry about meta in your fucking plus 4 key, okay?
Players.
Just accept the people and run it.
It's arisen because of a problem. The game ain't balanced. Not even close. Now, that is a general problem, not specifically an M+ problem, but that being said, Blizzard should probably be more generous with buffs to the obvious underperformers. There is more to gain than there is to lose, and when you take a look at the class comp breakdowns as they shift, week after week, you can see that there's genuine problems. And another thing that would probably help is Blizzard increasing the crest cap a little bit. I mean, with more crests dropping, loads of people in our guild have found themselves capping on ruined crests before they're even doing content, and that's often in part thanks to the trading up system with old crests and then the higher drops from delves. So running Mythic Plus and getting no crests does kind of suck.
Feels
getting
bad.
Valor Stones when you've really got no way to spend Valor Stones also kind of sucks. Those things just seem silly. Blizzard should really have them solved for the next season at least. But
sure.
I do think we can say that at this point, Blizzard kind of knows what these problems are. I think we've just got to watch and see what they do to make this better over time.
Yeah.
Because their pattern of behavior over the last few weeks in finding the points of frustration and then filing them down so there's a smoother experience, that does actually show that they give a shit and they're willing to make changes. And that actually means I'm willing to get invested in Mythic Plus again. I think as this positive story grows, assuming Blizzard keep their eye on the ball.
Yeah, you do feel like there's a positive feedback loop right now with Blizzard, so it does get you excited to play. Like when you see a pain point, when you see something stupid going on, you're like, oh, they're probably going to fix that. And they really have been lately, especially if you go to the forums and you see the major pain points. Almost every single one is eventually getting addressed. Yeah, it's going to take time sometimes for them to fix things mid-season, but at least you know that they're kind of keeping their eyes open. They're listening to the feedback, and they are trying to address all the pain points.
More people will be willing to get into Mythic Plus again. And if they can solve the pugging problem, well, then they'll truly be on to some form of winner. But for now, it's at least good that we can look at changes, we can look at the heat maps, we can look at the numbers, and we can see that what Blizzard's doing is actually having an impact. Because let me tell you, during the days of BFA, days of Shadowlands, the saddest thing was feeling like you saw so many of the problems, seeing the negative impacts of those problems,
and knowing they would never be fixed.
Seeing changes, not seeing fixes.
That's true.
We have came a long way since then. I think the change truly is night and day. And if you want to know what's coming up next and when, check out this latest edition of the Warcraft News.
There it is. Yeah. He's totally right. It's a better season than Season 1, surely, and the numbers prove that. Now, the numbers are a bit skewed, as I said, when you're comparing to past expansions, because of, just a lack of diversity in content to be able to do back then. It was like Mythic Plus or bust back then, and now it's not the case anymore. But still, positive trends for sure, and yes, the vibes are good in WoW right now. I really do feel that. A nice video from Belial.